Neo, try me!
There's been no shortage of Dragon Ball games in recent years. Each has tried to capture the essence of the manga, anime, films, and other spin-offs of Akira Toriyama's creation. Some have been decent. The pair of Dragon Ball Xenoverse games that released most recently were well received by fans and critics, while other recent entries like Battle of Z were not. It's been hit and miss for Dragon Ball fans looking for a faithful video game adaptation, but Dragon Ball FighterZ looks to change that with a great use of the license in a new fighting game by Arc System Works. These are the developers behind popular fighting games in the BlazBlue and Guilty Gear series, and they've taken that 2D cinematic style of fighting, wrapped it in a ton of fan service in terms of presentation, and produced one of the most cohesive Dragon Ball experiences we've seen in years. The Dragon Ball series is about fighting after all. Tapping Arc System Works for fighters seemed like a match made in heaven. With the finished product in hand, this is definitely a reality. Taking much of what they learned with their other games, incorporating it into the Dragon Ball universe, while also looking to other popular fighting games for further inspiration, has produced something that is not only fan service, but a fun game that appeals to both casual and dedicated players. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a fighting game, plain and simple. While other Dragon Ball games have had fighting and multiplayer in them, this is a game with a very strong identity in terms of genre. Dragon Ball FighterZ is for players who want to test their mettle online with a comprehensive roster of Dragon Ball characters, play locally against friends or AI, or experience a strong Dragon Ball story by themselves with multiple character arcs to explore. FighterZ takes some of the best parts of Arc System Works' previous efforts, combines them with some trappings from the Marvel vs. Capcom series, and delivers a pick-up and play experience that is fun for both newcomers and those who want to dig into the competitive scene. While FighterZ is very much aimed at an online audience, there's a very strong offline story mode as well. This story features 3 separate campaigns which feature 1 chapter for the Super Warriors, 1 for the villains, and 1 for the androids. The actual story for the campaign is both well done from an art and performance standpoint, as well as narrative. You can choose to experience the story in Japanese with English subtitles or in the full English voiceover. It wouldn't quite be fair if we revealed any of the spoilers from this excellent campaign, but this branching narrative structure combined with the ability to explore an open map and discover different sub-arcs of the story make it one that Dragon Ball fans shouldn't miss. Playing through each of the different arcs will allow you to get familiar with almost all of the characters in the game, whether that be the warriors, villains, or androids. The bulk of the story mode is playing the fighting game itself, but after each boss battle you'll get treated to story progressing cutscenes. Depending on which routes you take to the boss battles, you may uncover different story elements along the way. The difficulty of the story is probably the most erratic element of the game itself. There is a natural difficulty curve for each stage of the chapter in which you'll do battle with numerous teams that increase in difficulty. But there's also times where it feels like that difficulty spikes up in unexpected moments just to make sure you're not spamming away at the buttons. In total, you could sink about 10 to 12 hours into Dragon Ball FighterZ story if you absolutely have to see everything. While this runtime sounds like a lot, it does feel like some of the middle parts of the main and secondary arcs could have been cut down a bit, as the game does very little, if anything, to mix up the formula with minigames or other activities. The fighting in Dragon Ball FighterZ is as approachable as it is deep. It's got enough nuance to it that competitive fighting game fans will be able to sink their teeth into it, but it's also incredibly lenient for players who are just picking up the controller for the first time. In fact, with very little experience, you can pull off some of the most cinematic and deadly moves in the game, but with many of these powerful moves being tied to just a handful of inputs. It's also fairly linear in terms of how each character plays. There is some difference, certainly, but for the most part, once you've learned the controls of a single character, you can easily transition to others without having to commit to memory a whole new list of moves. This is a stark contrast to many other fighting games, where mastering a single character rarely has much carryover to another one. In many cases, in other games, characters on the roster have completely different inputs to learn. This combination of the gameplay and awesome art on display in FighterZ combat couples well with the tag-in, tag-out system of play. Like Marvel vs. Capcom, players choose a 3-character team and can switch between them at will during a match. They can tag in, tag out, and be called in for special moves. In terms of gameplay, there's really not much to complain about here. There's just about every character you could think of incorporated into the game at launch, and the combat system is more approachable than most games. Dragon Ball fans know the characters of the series as all-powerful beings, and any fight in the game can come across as an epic conflict, making for something that is equally fun to watch unfold as it is to play. Arc System Works borrows from previous games they've made for its progression system in FighterZ. A loot box-like system allows you to purchase capsules that contain cosmetic items which you can use in the game's hub world. Each capsule costs 1,000 Zenny currency, and after beating all 3 arcs of the story, I had plenty of it to go around for all the capsules and cosmetics I could handle. With how loot boxes have been used in recent releases by some publishers, FighterZ is a breath of fresh air in this department. This hub world allows you to tackle the aforementioned story mode, but it's also got some other things to explore as well. You have a practice arena which allows you to train against the computer, tackle combo challenges, and perform battle tutorials. The offline lobby also features a place known as the shop where players can purchase new capsules with the in-game Zenny currency. There's a replay center, a local battle hub, and aside from the story mode, this will be one of the other big spots that players will head to when playing FighterZ, as it allows you to play local versus human opponents or AI in a variety of modes. This mode also allows you to earn the Zenny currency to purchase capsules or characters following the completion of the story. But online play is where people will get their most value out of FighterZ. The online component of FighterZ allows 64 players to roam around its hub world, each using unique avatars and unlockables to make their own identity. This portion of the game allows players to square off in multiple online battle types from casual to ranked matches, as is usually the case with online experiences. The gameplay and quality of it really relies on the network connection between 2 players when looking at performance compared to the frantic pace of the offline game. Our experience has been good so far with online play in Dragon Ball FighterZ, and assuming that Bandai Namco has a smooth launch for the game, this fighter has a ton of replay value. Dragon Ball FighterZ is both an incredible game to look at and to play. Arc System Works has done right by the Dragon Ball name, giving fans of the source material plenty to be happy about.